Okay. Can you just activate sharing? It says it's disabled.
I'm sorry, say it again, please.
Okay. Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I just will give you a quick report on what where the GeoForAll fits in, where what is our involvement with World Commons Week, and then we'll take over from the presentations. So just quickly, this event is part of the World Commons Week 2020, which is running until the 9th of October. Just to give you some information about that, the aim of this event is to promote knowledge, promote sharing of experiences, and also to celebrate the idea of commons. So just for those that don't know, there's various definitions, but the one that would fit into my bubble is the shared resources where all the stakeholders have equal interest. And this very much resonates with what we are doing within GeoForAll as well as OSGeo. So just from our specific mission, you can see that public goods and open principles is definitely one of our foundations. And we are focusing mostly in the educational sphere. So we have partnered with other organizations such as ICA, ISPRS, UNGIS, Agile, etc. There's a bunch of other partners as well. Then we have a global network of labs. We are currently looking into possibilities of increasing our collaboration between labs. So if anyone has ideas for that, please let us know. Then if you are interested in becoming one of the labs, I added the link here for you. But if you also go to the OSGeo website, you'll see under GeoForAll, there's a button there that says submit your lab. And once we have all the information, you will be part of the GeoForAll family. Then this is not a complete map. We still have some labs where the pins are not yet added. But this just gives you an idea of the distribution over the world at the moment. So we are in Africa, South America. There's, I think, a couple more in Australia that's just not showing at the moment. But this is really, we do encourage you, if your university or your organization is not yet part of GeoForAll, please do join us. Then there's a very interesting program today. This is a couple of people that are very active within our community will be presenting, and I'm really excited to see what they are doing. So hopefully you will get inspired from today's presentation and be able to share your experiences with us next year. Okay, so that is my quick introduction. So I would like to ask the next speaker, are you ready to start? So this is from the Politecnico Milano. Yes, hi Lorenzo.
Hi, I'm here.
Okay.
I start my presentation, I will.
Yes, you can go ahead. Thank you.
You're welcome. Just start to share the screen. Okay, let me know if you can see my presentation. Can you see
Yes, yes, we can see it.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So thank you everybody for the interest of this presentation. I'm going to present you the work that we have done partially inside my master thesis. I'm Lorenzo Stucchi. I'm a research fellow at the Politecnico di Milano in the GeoLab laboratory that is part of the GeoForAll network. And also the work is done with Professor Biagi and Professor Brovelli. The work is titled Mapping the Accessibility in OpenStreetMap, a comparison of different techniques. The work is done inside the project Via Libera. This is the project that is in the city of Milano, in a particular municipality of the city of Milano, that is the Municipality 9. The Municipality 9 is one of the biggest in the city and have a quite big area. In the area, there are some particular area of interest that are the two campus university, the Bicocca University and one campus of the Politecnico di Milano, the Bovisa campus. And also there is an important pole of interest for people with motor disability, that is the Niguarda Hospital, that is also one of the most important in the North Italy. The project is followed by the Politecnico di Milano, but also by other association of people with disability, like we have these three, Spazio Vita Niguarda Onlus, Leda Milano, and Haus Niguarda Onlus. There are association of people with, in particular, with motor disability. We believe that this project is particularly focused on this week with a focus on the UN Sustainable Development Goals, in particular 10 and the 11, and more in particular 11.7, because there is a real idea of reducing inequalities, because there is mostly the transport is one of the most barrier that limits the people, as defined by the World Health Organization, that define that the lack of accessibility limits the possibility of works, but also to have a freedom life for all the people with disability. And the idea of the project is to create a map of this element of interest, of the barriers in particular. The map is produced not by some agency, but in particular by the high school students and the Politecnico students, and by the citizen of the municipality, with the support of people with motor disability. We start with an analysis of the state of art of the previous project that tried to develop a similar approach. We found that there was two main approaches, in particular an authoritative approach where the data are collected by the government agency, or a crowdsourcing approach with an AVGI approach, so a volunteer geographic information approach, where the different options also are possible, because we was thinking if it was needed a creation of the database, or we can use an existing one. And generally, as we know, the most used is OpenStreetMap. After, we have to decide another option, say if there should be any collection of the data by the artificial intelligence, or a direct insertion of the data by the user. For the project Via Libera, it is being chosen to use the OpenStreetMap database, because there was found that the most recent project was inside the OpenStreetMap database, and also direct insertion of the data by the users, because we will take care that the user himself learn about the issue, this issue related to the accessibilities for people with motor disabilities, also trying to identify this barrier. Since when you learn which are the barriers, you keep it in your mind and you feel it and you find it around your places. I will briefly introduce the OpenStreetMap project, but I believe that most of you know it. This is a project that started in 2004 at the University College of London, and is an example exactly of a VGA project. The data inside OpenStreetMap are mapped in three different data primitives: the node, the way, and the relation. The relation is the most complex one, and we can say that it's a combination of previous one. We can see in the image that the relation is a combination of a node and a way, for example. But we can say that this description is not enough for a complete description of the element that we found. So it is needed also to have the tag. The tag is a combination of key and then value, and are the attributes that describe the element, the previous element found. So these are the attributes. We can say in the image that there are, for example, some common attributes that are building equal yes for this way, that represent a building. Also for the relation, we can have a specific tag on the relation. We start the analysis about the legislation, and in particular what is being identified by the law as barriers. Since the project is in Italy, in particular in the city of Milano, that is then in the Lombardy region, we found three different levels of legislation. The European Accessibility Act, that is an European law, but is not more focused on particularly, we just choose, since the project in the city of Milano, we found the three different levels of legislation that are available: the European level, the Italian level, and then the regional level of the Lombardy region. We found that the limits were posed only on the Italian and on the regional level. So we needed to choose these two instruments for the definition of the barriers. And also we decided to discuss this limit with something needed to describe for activities previously done, needed to be mapped outside the highways. So we can see in the image that there is the red line. And after we need to map the crossing that are the green line in the image and are described. There are two important elements to be considered that are the nodes B and D in the image that are the curves. Because the curves are, how we can see in the image on the top right, there are three different types of curves. And this type of curves describe if the sidewalks is really accessible, because there can be a sidewalk in perfect condition, but there can be impossible to be reached by people in wheelchair. And so also it's important to insert the height of the exact height of the curb, because we found that theoretically a raised curb that does present a ramp that arrives to the level of the crossing can present some issue. But we found that there can be some old lowered curb that the time is consuming the asphalt, and so now there is a gap between the level of the ramp and the level of the street. Other elements that need to be mapped are, for example, some trees that are on sidewalks that reduce the space available for the wheelchair, or some street lamp and pole present for example, for street sign that reduce also the width of the sidewalk. Other elements of interest are the parking space for disabled people, because with the talking of the stakeholders, we found that most of them arrive to an area with their cars, and after they need to move inside the area with their cars, so with the wheelchair. So it is important also to understand which is the point of arrival. Once we have described all these elements, there are also some attributes, other characteristics that are important to be analyzed, that are, for example, the surface of the sidewalks, the height of this element present on the sidewalk, the width, and the inclination, because these are two limits that make difficult the moving of the people with wheelchair. We tested 3 different methodologies for understanding which one should be adapted for the mapping the activity, for mapping these barriers. We use field paper, that is a well-known web tool for the creation of printable maps. So the volunteers go on the field with a map with the data already present in OpenStreetMap, and they draw on the map where are the barriers. And drawing these elements, after they need to be reported inside the OpenStreetMap database. The second methodology is an improvement of the previous one, and consider the use of images that are being collected with different type of camera that have been tested. So can be that there are pros and cons of every one of the camera. The best one was found as the 360 degrees cameras, because gives to the people that don't know the area a full immersion in the area and the possibility to move, and also to better found where is the barriers, and maybe watch it from two different perspectives, and so give a more 3D idea of the object. The last methodology is the use of mobile application. So the volunteers go on the field and directly insert the data inside OpenStreetMap using mobile application. We found that the best one were GoMap and Vespucci, because it was the only one that provided the editing needed for the barriers that we would like to map. Finally, we have a comparison of the result. We can see in this table different rules that we decide to compare. So we have a simplicity parameters that defines how is easy to this methodology to be used by new volunteers, and we found that most of them were very simple, and most of the also new OSM mapper were able to do it. All the methods were suitable with wheelchair. We do some test time about how time is required to map the element, and how was expected. We found that the use of field paper required more time, because the activity requires a second step, as is reported below, to insert the data inside OpenStreetMap, because on the field I can only just draw some lines on the paper, but after I have to import this line inside OpenStreetMap. The accuracy of all the methods is the same, because we found it useful to have a ruler to measure the height of the curb and to identify the width of the sidewalk in particular places. So all the elements all the methodologies need a ruler. The cost is very depending because it depends also on the type of the material that is needed. So for example, for the field paper, some paper doesn't cost so much. For the cameras and the smartphone needed for the other methodology can depend also on the possibility of the volunteers. The last element important is that with the mobile application, we found that it was very hard to draw every single elements because the linear elements are quite difficult to be drawn on a smartphone because the screen is very small. Generally, it's not useful. It's not so simple like with using a mouse on a computer when you are on a desk. So next step that are some activities we have already done. We moved due to this pandemic situation to a new methodology that we found more useful that reduce the time on the field. Since we just needed once, we do not use anymore with field paper, but we collect 360 degrees camera. You can see, we use Mapillary to collect these images, to store also these images, and we have this project, this organization, Via Libera, you can find, and we're already found, uploaded more than 3,000 photos, and more or less 10 kilometers of sidewalks are already mapped with photos. Now 6 other kilometers are going to be mapped, 6 kilometers, sorry, are inside OpenStreetMap. The other 4 kilometers need to be added. I will add it in the next weeks. In the next month, during October and November, we are going to map more 22 kilometers more of sidewalks by high school students that will help. We will use the help of people with motor disability. Concluding, and I finish, we found that two-step approach is always required to arrive to achieve accuracy. Also, if you use the mobile application and we draw on the small screen of the smartphone, it is needed after to have a check of what is done inside OpenStreetMap with, for example, with GeoSmat, better align the created sidewalk. The best methodology is the use of field paper and images, or best, as we discovered recently, is the previous collection of the image on the field, use of GeoSmat remotely for the insertion of the elements, and just finally using mobile application, go on the field and measure the different height and width of the element. Future test that we would like to do is the use of photogrammetry, so use the 360 degrees cameras, photos collected to create a structure, and the use of LiDAR backpack. So, but we don't focus totally on this point because we found that these are not instruments that volunteers are suitable for them. So we think that this is better to think in a second step. This is a more professional approach that will be analyzed in future. I finish, I thank you. And I would just, if you are interested, I'm here for some questions. Maybe I believe at the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lorenzo. It was very interesting. I think we'll leave the questions according to the schedule to the end. So if anyone has questions along, you can start posting it in the chat, and then Lorenzo can start preparing for that as well. Then next up is Victor Sunday. He is part of the Youth Mappers Network. They are a close connection, also Youth Mappers with GeoForAll. So we are very excited to hear a bit more about women empowerment and also the SDGs in Nigeria. Thank you, Victor.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Victor Sunday, and I'll be doing the presentation with Damilola Olufemi Uchechi and Uchechi Anaduaka. We'll be doing a presentation on assessing women empowerment needs using open data and geospatial skills, implication for SDGs in Nigeria. Motivation for this work or presentation is based on a recent project proposal for Facebook Community Microgrant project, which we applied, though we didn't get that, but the insight we got from the needs assessment survey, it's something that we also feel that we could share with everyone, especially since it has to do with community engagement for gender equality. For this paper, we'll be Yeah, for this, okay, yeah, for this presentation, we'll be having an outline to recap on the SDGs, the project motivation, the project aim, and then the sacrosanct of women empowerment, the unique mappers inclusive empowerment for SDGs, sampled women community empowerment profile, needs assessment of women for geospatial skill empowerment, assessed needs of women using open data empowerment, and finally, the implication of SDGs in Nigeria. And so Uchechi Anaduaka will be taking the next slides.
Yeah, so just a recap on the SDGs. There are 17 goals, which are broken down into 169 targets and 232 indicators. And the aim of the goals are to ensure that no one is left behind. And so at Unique Mappers, we are quite on the train with that. And our focus is specifically goals 1 to 5 and goal 13. And for this presentation, we are focusing on goal 5, which is gender equality. So for gender equality, so like Mr. Sunday said, our aim for this project, we wanted to know what women and girls really need, because one of the aims of gender equality is that we enhance the use of enabling technology, in particular information and communications technology, to promote the empowerment of women. And so that's really our aim for this project, to ensure that we help promote the empowerment of women and in turn push the achievement of the SDG. Next slide, please.
So please don't call me, cut the call, I'm in the house.
Next slide, please.
And why in all sphere of life, that geospatial data is quite critical to sustainable development goals. And so empowering women with geospatial skill is as critical as using open data for measurable targets of the SDGs. Open data, like we all know, is data that is accessible for use, reuse, and sharing by anyone without restriction. And so this data, or the open data, is usually licensed to commons and most often acquired through crowdsourcing and participatory citizen science for public good. And so if Nigeria is to succeed in meeting the targets of SDG by 2030, then there's need for women empowerment. And when women are empowered with open geospatial skills, then there will be an effective community drive for measurable targets of SDGs in Nigeria. So this study, therefore, provided an assessment of the needs of women in relation to open source geospatial skills and open geospatial data. And the target skills that we assessed include training the women in map digitization using open source geospatial tools like OpenStreetMap, and then field mapping techniques using other open source geospatial tools. Yeah, Uchechi.
One interesting thing we found while doing this analysis is that even though women make up half the sky, so about 50% of the world's population is women, and about 49% of the population in Nigeria are also women, but they are still lagging behind in several aspects of their human rights. And even the latest reports by the World Economic Forum, the Gender Gap report, Nigeria is still lagging behind, even though it has made some significant improvements. It ranks 27th in Sub-Saharan Africa and 128th on the global rankings. So it fared better this year in terms of the economic participation and opportunity gender parity, but still lags significantly behind in terms of the educational attainment, health and survival, and political empowerment. So what we tried to do was that we looked at the different indicators that are captured in the report, and we can see that basically for all the indicators, women are lagging behind. Literacy rate is still significantly lower, 52.7%, whereas for men, it's 71.3%. Like the previous slide, I said, economic opportunity improved, and we can see that labor market participation is, the gap has closed significantly. It's at 51% on average and 60% for men. Another thing that we found interesting was that for the political empowerment, women are not doing any better than the past years. And currently we see that only 3.4% of women make up parliamentary membership. And in the upper house, you have 6.5%. Until date, we don't have any head of state that is a woman. So all the previous presidents and the current president is a man. So we believe that with training women, educating women, we can enable them to build up their skills and start taking up some of those positions in politics. So, and improving their capacities will also enable them to lead a fulfilling human life. They will have more access to economic options, they will complete their schooling and participate fully in the formal labor market. And we also believe that there are also spillover effects of women empowerment. For instance, women are more likely to refute unequal social norms when they are more educated, more empowered. They're also more likely to work towards eradicating harmful cultural practices against women and girls, such as child marriage, early childbearing, female genital mutilation, rape, and sexual exploitation. And they're also more likely to participate in personal and household decision-making, such as healthcare utilization and contraceptive use, and make more decisions in terms of purchasing within the household and also visiting friends and family.
Yeah, looking at the unique mappers inclusive empowerment for SDGs, I want to say that unique mappers network or unique mappers team, or even UMT as fondly called, is currently a non-profit organization that is registered in Nigeria with a mandate and mission for humanitarian response and community development. Currently, we are spreading across the 36 states of Nigeria, mobilizing volunteers and also providing community empowerment, both in the higher institutions and in various sectors, using open source geospatial data and using open data. So the network drives, we have about 7 areas of focus, which includes open mapping using OpenStreetMap project in Nigeria, and then mobile data collection and field surveys for open data development. And more critical to this presentation is the use of open source geospatial empowerment using the GeoForAll lab, which the Unique Mappers network is a member and representative, is a lab in Nigeria. And then we also provide community drone mapping for open data development and inclusive community engagement, as well as gender inclusive empowerment using open data and open geospatial tools, so that we can drive community inclusive empowerment for sustainable development action. And so we are doing all we can to see how we can drive knowledge using open data, how we can provide gender equality using bridging the gap using open source geospatial tools in various states in Nigeria. For instance, we have Uchechi Anaduaka, who is a lecturer at University of Nigeria and Suchith, And then Olufemi, who is also here, a student at the Federal University of Technology, Akure. And then I'm coming from University of Port Harcourt, Nigeria, lecturing. So we are working and networking together along with all volunteers and members of Unique Mappers across Nigeria to see how we can drive GeoForAll Lab using open source geospatial empowerment, and then using open data mapping based on OpenStreetMap as one of the local communities of OpenStreetMap in Nigeria. So we drive inclusive empowerment for SDGs, and I'm sure this is also part of the work that is helping GeoForAll to contribute to the United Nations SDGs. And that's the more reason why we are presenting it at this World Common Week. Olufemi can take the next slide.
Okay, here is a sampled women community empowerment profile. So here is a chart showing the survey we once took between 25th and 28th of July, evaluating the need for geospatial skill empowerment and proficiency of women and girls using geospatial tools. We received 54 responses. Majority were between 21 to 35 years of age. And we have students, we have 31.5% that are students, and 5 of them work with private sector. Next slide, please. Okay, access needs of women for geospatial skill empowerment. Frequent disruptive innovations in the geospatial field are created more opportunities in spatial science, natural resource management, landscaping mapping, urban planning, and smart decision making. So currently 80% of the respondents reported naivety when asked about their proficiency using geospatial tools and techniques. Meanwhile, they stated their interest in improving mapping skills and mapping accurately using open source data, digitizing and editing in OpenStreetMap, working with advanced tools in OSM using the Rapid AI and GeoSim tool, field mapping techniques, data use and analysis, working with QGIS, web and interactive map software, mapping with GIS software and machine learning. So interpretation of maps and data, empowering them with the skills can enable them benefit from the above opportunities stated. Next slide. Okay, we also assess the needs of women for open data empowerment. As you know, open data has the potential to change the lives of women and girls, yet current initiatives have largely overlooked how open data can be used to meet their needs. Empowering women with the skill to collect data and avail its use and share freely can help close women's specific SDG indicators. Some of the indicator data need include the domestic violence and sexual harassment, girl-child education, girl-child marriage, access to healthcare and delivery, gender inequality in the labor force, vulnerable women farmer, poor and residing in the rural areas, and female genital mutilation. On to you, Victor.
Yes. Finally, the implication for SDGs in Nigeria with respect to this assessment for women empowerment using open data and open source geospatial tool. Our focus is to ensure that women are empowered, and so the gender equality SDG 5 would be the outcome of the empowerment of women and girls, and to ensure that gender equality is achieved and maintained in a sustainable way. More women and girls need to be empowered economically and socio-culturally and politically as well. So empowering women using open data and geospatial skills would help boost their participation in community development activities, driving solutions to human problems and bridge the gender gap in the labor force. At the Unique Mappers Network, for the past 4 years, we've been driving gender equality and inclusive community empowerment using the International Women's Day event, as you can see in the picture, during which we mobilize women and girls in various higher institutions in Nigeria, and then see a way of sensitizing and then training them on the use of open source geospatial tools, especially OpenStreetMap, to provide open data about issues that affect women, just like we have been able to provide needs assessment, sampling women across Nigeria. And so in conclusion, the sampled women and girls indicated interest in being empowered with training in map digitization, field mapping techniques, and so on. The study also emphasized the urgent need to provide open data about vulnerable women and girls, especially those affected by domestic violence, sexual harassment, poor rural women farmers, as well as COVID-19 health and food insecurity. And so the next step for us at Unique Mappers would be to expand this study and then equally organize a specific training and empowerment that will provide a significant effort to provide this specific empowerment for women across Nigeria. And so we want to appreciate Anaduaka and Uchechi for being there to work with me for this presentation. And we want to also emphasize that empowering women using open data and geospatial skill would help boost their participation in community development activities during solution to human problems and bridge the gender gap in the labor force, especially in Nigeria. And so we still have a few years to the target of the 2030 SDG. We look forward that over here in Unique Mappers and in Nigeria, we'll keep driving gender equality using open source geospatial tool and open data. Thank you, Olufemi, Damilola, and Uchechi for being with me to make this presentation.
Great, thank you very much to the Unique Mappers team. That was very interesting. You guys are quite busy there. Then we'll get to the questions later on. Then just next up is Women in GIS, the Kenya group. This is Caroline that will be telling us a bit more about what they are up to. Caroline, are you here? Can you just confirm? The next presentation, the video from Nikos, and then we can circle back to Women in GIS.
Yeah, that's good. Yep. I have the video, so I will show it right now, and here it goes.
Hello everyone, this is Nikos Lambrinos from Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. I'm going to talk about the pedagogical value of a newsletter as a means of teacher training and I'm going to show you the case of GeoForAll Newsletter. The newsletters are widely used by many organizations and for different purposes. Their main use is to inform community members about new ideas and information about the community and its interests. In order not to risk a newspaper being classified as a newspaper, its use should be more applied. One such use is its entry into the educational process, especially when the newsletter comes from an organization that promotes open policy in education and its topics are related to open applications in research and education. This presentation shows the parts of OGEO's GeoForAll initiative newsletter and how some of them can be applied to the training of young teachers, their students, and geospatial scientists. GeoForAll is the open source Geospatial Foundations Committee for Educational Outreach and works in close collaboration with ICA, ISPRS, UNGIS, Agile, UCGIS, IGU, and other partners worldwide for making geospatial education and opportunities accessible to all. How do we make education and opportunities accessible to all? By open source and free software for all, and by free education for all. After all, education means teaching and learning. Regarding the teaching, the effectiveness of the teacher is significantly strengthened in the context of the enrichment of teaching practices, the planning, organization, and conducting and feedback of its teaching. Regarding learning, the student is creatively engaged through the discovery method, exploratory and collaborative learning. Here comes the newsletter that provides the student with its content, information and articles to guide him or her in exploring the content, discovering the information and collaborating through the texts of the articles. The newsletter, from the pedagogical point of view, covers both roles, the teacher and the student. It supports both at the same time. It is worth mentioning that during the reading of a newsletter, all of us can be the teacher and the student at the same time, which usually doesn't happen in a classroom, a seminar or whatever, where the role of each one is more or less distinct. It is true that very often we put ourselves in the position of the teacher when we read something we know, and may happen that in the next paragraph we are the student who gets a new information. The first issue was published in August 2015. Since then, it is published every month, the last one being volume 6, number 9 of September 2020. This includes 62 issues. Since September 2017, the newsletter is being published in Spanish also. The newsletter is bilingual. Now we're about to publish next issue, the issue of October. Here are the contents of the newsletter. It is comprised of 18 chapters and can be divided into 3 sectors which may overlap more or less. The first second is that of the general information. It is comprised of the activities of the network, the lab of the month and the Geo Ambassador, which is the presentation of a lab almost every month, and the presentation of someone who has extinguished activity about geospatial. The events, worldwide, conferences, key research publications, funding opportunities, bids, etc., new free and open software, data, etc., articles, awards, websites, ideas and information, and social contribution. The second sector is of, again, conferences, webinars, key research publications, new free and open software and data, free books, educational materials, etc., articles, scholarships for students and staff, exchange programs for students and staff in our network, GeoForAll network, and websites. And the final sector is for the student, which is about webinars, courses, training programs and workshops, new free and open software data, free books, educational materials, etc., articles, scholarships for students and staff, exchange programs for students and staff in our network, and websites. Of course, this separation is not absolute. For example, Chapter 4 conferences may interest some students also, especially those who are in their final year of their school life or university students. In this point, I would like to clarify that talking about students, we have to define the educational level. Usually, when we talk about geospatial applications, university students come first in our mind, and then students of high schools. Certainly, we don't think about primary school, although there are examples where primary school students have done a remarkable job of working with spatial data in the field and into their classroom. In our case, our main concern is high school, K11 and K12, and university students, mainly junior and senior. How it supports teaching? Let's talk about the teacher's point of view. Teacher needs new teaching material. Before they use, the teacher should be aware of contemporary, so the students will not get bored. Usually the curriculum and or the textbooks in high school are lagging behind of the means used in formal education. This is a handicap for formal education, and the teacher might need new materials to fill the gap. Easy to find on the internet, that is downloadable materials ready to use, materials that are not hiding in a labyrinth of links. Usually there is one link of the home page which guides to the rest. If the material is a map, then it is easy. From a trusted source and promoted by experts, sources may be an obstacle if they are not trusted or approved by the Ministry of Education. I'm talking about K-12 level. If it is for a university class, then usually the teacher has full responsibility for the acceptance of the courses, and usually the courses are tested before. Free to use. License is a problem if the materials are not free. Schools have limited budget. In our case, only free materials are promoted. Easy to understand. It is preferred to be in native language, and if not, then it is suggested not to have too much terminology, which will make it difficult to follow by a non-expert. Usually this has to do with the user. If the user is a university teacher, then there are no restraints, but if the user is a middle or high school teacher, then he or she may face terminology problems. The level of difficulties may become more serious if the teacher teaches in a primary school. Translation into native language of key research publications or textbooks or software is important, but it is time-consuming also. And finally, user-friendly. The friendlier, the easier to be adopted by the teacher. If the teacher finds it easy to follow, then he or she knows how to introduce it to the students. The key is always the teacher. All the above are applied to the contents of new free and open software, free and open data, free books, and websites. And the new approach and ideas have to do with conferences, webinars, key research publications, and articles. How it supports learning. This is the student's point of view, which has many similarities with those of the teacher's point of view. We have new study materials. The materials should meet specific properties, which are the same as for the teachers. Depending on the level of education, the teacher or student can choose a more or less advanced level that fits to his or her needs. It is mainly composed of free and open software and geospatial data, free books, and websites. The new opportunities are training programs for everyone interested in geospatial technology, either in high school or university level, scholarships for students, mainly PhD students, and exchange programs between labs and universities. There is a great number of labs and universities which form a network and potentially can be an incubator of new ideas and collaborations. In this point, I would like to mention that in the Ideas Information section, job vacancies are announced also. The contribution of the newsletter. According to all above, the contribution of the newsletter since the first issue is as follows. There are 62 issues so far up to September 2020 issue. The newsletter has offered to the students and teachers a lot of information and opportunities for improvement. In all these issues, all are announced links of 36 webinars, 32 courses, webinars and courses either in English or in Spanish language or both, 44 training programs and workshops, 63 new free and open software and data, 81 free books and educational materials, and 19 new websites. Free material for educational purposes of all educational levels addressed to teachers and students, not to mention all the others, which are considered to be more general, as much important as all the other, like the presentation of labs, Lab of the Month, for example, where scientists and educators are informed about the research that is being done in labs around the world, or people, Geo-Ambassador section where scientists from all over the world are introduced to the readers for their dedicated work in open and free geospatial software development and teaching. Conferences, announcement of hundreds of conferences around the globe with links and information of each one of them, and many ideas and news about forthcoming and past events which may interest the members of our community. An important section for everyone is the funding opportunities, bids, etc., where not only funds and bids, but also new collaborations can be found, and also the scholarships and exchange programs for students and staff can connect people from labs around the world. Before I close, I would like to mention that the editing of the newsletter is based on voluntary work of its 9 co-editors, a translation team from English to Spanish and vice versa, and 1 graphics designer. I would like to thank all of them for their devotion to the newsletter and their excellent job all these years in promoting the idea of free and open for all education. Thank you very much for your attention. See you in our next issue.
Okay, thank you for that, Rafael. That was a very interesting presentation. I just want to check again if someone from Women in GIS is here. Okay, the SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me try to share my screen. How will I share my screen? Let me screen.
Yeah, you should be able to do it. All right.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you, everyone. I think it was really, I was really happy to be with all of you today. I'm really happy to be with all of you today. And, you know, this is a really important initiative from the World Commons Week, and getting the opportunity to be with all of you today and hear from, you know, some of the presentations before as well was very important. And I found it very, very inspiring to learn about the work that colleagues have been doing, in different areas. And in fact, when I listen to all of this work, I can see the links with, in fact, even when I look at our newsletter or our labs in different places, they all link with, some of the activities in, or, one or more of the SDG aims. And that's very important for me. I think when I look into it, that's our key contributions for the global society as well. And what I'm going to do today is to briefly summarize, I can't summarize all the work, but what I thought I will at least do for one SDG, and I will thought, maybe, take one or two of these SDGs and show how the work of that, colleagues around the world are doing is linking some of these work as well. So I'm going to start with geo-education because, as Nikos has he has done a really great, amazing job with the newsletter, linking the idea of how we can share the information on all these free and open tools for education opportunities for all. And why, when we look back or, take a step back, why is it important? And for me, the reason why geo-education is so important is, when we, not only, when we look at, as a geo-education alone, but when we want to look into how we want to solve, or achieve the UN SDGs and, find solutions to global societal challenges, you will find that, that's where the whole, the location and time, how it is so critical. And geospatial science helps us, provide the answers to all these challenges. So this is a very important area, and especially I come from the developing world. I come from India, and I know the difficulties, especially in education, to get access to proprietary tools, which are very expensive. So, I think the work that colleagues in OSGeo has done, the contribution for the global good is, for me, I am always grateful to, thousands of volunteers in the OSGeo community who develop, all these tools from QGIS to, all the tools that we are now using. So I want to, acknowledge and thank them, all of them, to make this possible, because, otherwise many of our colleagues in the developing world will never get access or to learn and, make use of the education opportunities of these amazing needs. That's very important as well. So for the geo-education needs, I think, this is the main reason, GeoForAll's aim is on the education aspects of this as well. So I want to, as I mentioned before, I want to show a couple of examples that I thought, because I am now working for the Global Open Data for Agriculture and Nutrition, and I want to show how the impact of GeoForAll is for, in all sectors. And I will show one example from the work I am doing now, because my current work is focused on zero hunger aim. And as we all know, we have, a lot of progress has been made over the years and huge technological developments, but it is a sad fact that even today, 800 million people are suffering from hunger every day. And for me, this is unacceptable. We have to, and it is, if there's a will, we have the resources to change that. It's not that we don't have the resources, but it's just the willpower to focus on this very important issue. And, in my work in GODAN, we are trying to, bring together collaborators from around the world to focus on this issue of zero hunger and how we can lift people out of poverty. And one of the things we found was innovation is very important for this. And, and data is also very key, and open data is playing a very important role to help us achieve the zero hunger aim. So I want to show why, as we are talking about SDGs, we have over 232 SDG indicators spread over these 17 SDG goals. And even for example, if I look into zero hunger, the links are, it's all, there are so many, links to other SDGs. It's not just one, you have to have a holistic approach when we look into how, to tackle this as well. So data is very important, but as you can see, even today we have, this slide is from SDG tracker, which shows that, where we have available data, and that is in green, and, the red shows where we don't have the data. And, so some of the indicators, we don't have that up-to-date data at a global scale as well. So even today, many of these indicators don't have the data. So there is a it's a, hopefully there will be more available data, but a lot of these indicators don't have data. And so, in zero hunger and zero poverty, there is also links with other SDGs as well. And Victor, Uchechi have talked about, for example, gender equality, women's empowerment. And when I look into, for example, agriculture sector, this is very important. For example, especially in the developing world, women smallholder farmers, women smallholder farmers are over 50% of the labor force. But when we look into things like land rights, very few percentage have land rights for women smallholder farmers. And so this is unless we have the data to understand, and we have policies to make sure, for example, land rights for women, it's very it's also very important to achieve the SDG aim. So the work that, for example, Uchechi and Victor and other colleagues in Nigeria are doing are very important. Education is very important, and I can see the impact of their work in the future, in helping us achieve the SDG aims. So also, things like climate action, it's very, again, how do you make sure geospatial tools and geospatial data, they are very key to help us find solutions to, how to look into best ways for the climate, and look into all other kind of SDG aims as well. So this shows the interlinks of the SDG indicators, and how we have to think holistically as well. And this, while I was preparing this presentation, I was looking into how we were over the years, how we have progressed. And I remember attending a meeting, I think it was in 2013. I was invited to attend this meeting called the EU Science Meeting, hosted by the European Parliament. And one of the things I learned from it, it's like, when even the SDGs, when we have global challenges like the SDG aims, from zero hunger to no poverty, these are all global challenges. And for these global challenges, we need global collaborations, and more. And, I think one of the things that is very important, and what fascinates me and what drives me for this, the work of GeoForAll, is our global outlook. We have colleagues from around the world, working on this, and then bringing together colleagues from around the world on a common purpose is, what I believe is very important if you want to help solve global challenges. And these global collaborations are very important. And and I think GeoForAll is a really good examples of colleagues from around the world working together, helping, from education to all the SDG aims as well. There are so many other examples as well. And, it's also education, also the science aspect of the work we are doing is also very important. And I want to, there are so many other key initiatives happening, but I specifically want to highlight some of the work that the European Commission is doing, had over the years. And, in fact, all the work that GeoForAll we are doing is also very closely aligned to some of these initiatives, like, how we are working in open innovation, open science, open to the world, open science cloud. These all have, are very much important for helping us progress the SDG aims as well. And for me, I also think that, open science is a key enabler for capacity development and empowerment for all, especially for colleagues in the developing world who have difficulty for resources. For example, buying software and things like that is kind of impossible. For someone from a developing world. From my own experience many years back in India, the software costs, for me that time was, I couldn't even imagine buying that, because it's like someone's 3 times and monthly salary for one software license for a GIS. So so we have to be mindful of the cost as well. So and to how can we make sure these tools, which are very important for the SDG aims, like the geospatial tools, they are available to for education, for capacity development in colleagues in the developing world as well. So open science is a key enabler. It's not only the open source software, but also the open having access to open education resources, which I think Nikos has very he has presented how he and his colleagues, the co-editors of the GeoForAll newsletters, have been sharing these resources, various open education resources and open tools through the newsletter. So, so open standards, open access to research publication, open data, all of them coming together helps provide capacity development opportunities and empowerment for everyone, especially the economically poor colleagues around the world as well. So this is very important aspect of the work we are doing as well. And I want to highlight, so it's education and empowerment is, key aspects of GeoForAll. And thanks to Silvana Comboin, who produced the slide. I think it's very important to realize that this our work and our colleagues from around the world who are working in different areas. From I see Sergio has joined from GVC Batowe. I will mention some of his work as well. So and then again colleagues from Victoria and colleagues from University of Pretoria. I was happy to see the presentation from the colleagues in Politecnico of Milano as well, because the work that they have been doing has been really helpful to expand our GeoForAll work. And in the work which is quite new for me, I was very happy to hear the work on on the research aspects of how they are using geospatial science for helping disabled users for navigation and things like that. These are very, very important aspects of the education and empowerment coming together. And colleagues in Brazil, Silvana Comboin, and they have been doing a lot of work on how to look into social inequality levels and economic inequality, and how we can address those kind of issues as well. So the whole philosophy of openness is not just on the software or tools, but the wider philosophy of how we can enable economic, especially digital economy opportunities for the economically poor as well, especially the students from economically poor backgrounds. They also have the right to learn these geospatial science, and also be part of the digital economy opportunities in the future as well. So I'm very grateful for our colleagues around the world who have been voluntarily contributing their time and efforts to the initiative and building, and it's all thanks to their work that it's all possible. And as I mentioned, I want to highlight the work from all levels. And one of the things I want to highlight is not only the university level work, but also the work that is working on the teacher training programs in for the high school levels as well, because school level training in GIS is also very important. And the best example I can from the network I can find is the work that Sergio and colleagues from the GVC Batowe are doing, and their philosophy of making educational resources, including software, openly available as an opportunity for to create knowledge to be shared widely and increase learning opportunity. And I think this is a real example of how with very little resources, but with the determination and coming together of colleagues for a global good, they were able to make something impossible possible. So they were able to provide students across Uruguay digital economy opportunities. And I am sure in the next 10 years we will actually see the benefits of this. These students, when they graduate and they will start, when they go to the workforce, they will be the key drivers of economic opportunities in the whole country. And education is a long-term kind of investment. We won't see the benefits. You have to be patient. It might take 10 years, 20 years, for that the impact to happen. But once that happens, it just dramatically changes the opportunities for everyone, and especially the achievement of the SDG aim. So it's the work that we are doing now. It will benefit over in the next generations to to get rid of the especially in developing world, we have this cycle of poverty, which is very difficult to get out of. And I think education is the only way to help us get out of that cycle of poverty. And that's why for me the work that colleagues in GeoForAll are doing are very important, because this open education is a great opportunity for students from the economically poor backgrounds to also get these opportunities to learn and progress in their lives as well. So there are other examples from for example from our colleagues in the UN grid in Warsaw. They work in GIS at schools at high school level, how GIS can be especially for teacher training programs. This is again a great example of how GIS can be used for teaching in school education as well. And I really hope more and more countries and more and more teachers and students, start making use of these opportunities for their learning as well. And teacher training is a key part of empowerment of next generation. And as I mentioned, GVC Batovi is a great example of how they are training the teachers who will then train the students, and that is a multiplier effect for the long term as well. So so hopefully over the next years we will find huge opportunities for happening in for geospatial science in the developing world, and all around the world as well. And we also are very focused on like a PhD student level education, because that is also very important. And some of the summer schools colleagues have been doing, especially our colleagues in Girona in Spain, they have been doing these summer schools and training programs. And many of our labs do a lot of training programs for undergraduate and postgraduate students anyway. So I think this is very key, because these students are the ones who will take up faculty positions later in future. So it's very important they get the ideas of open education, so then when they become faculty they will be able to set up their own labs, and they will be able to train the students in all these technologies, and provide more education opportunities for all. So the key philosophy for us is how we can empower the next generation, so everybody can benefit from the digital economy opportunities. Not only few people or few big organizations, but everyone who can benefit from the digital economy opportunities. So that's very important. And when I was trying to think about how to best summarize, I found this, I think one of the slides, I think it was from some of our colleagues. This was a really good way to think about it's not only about open software, open data, all these things coming together. For example, the whole OSGeo ecosystem, it's all these various ecosystems, open ecosystems coming together, that we have a huge open education ecosystem, the OSGeo ecosystem, specifically on the open source geospatial software. Standards are very, very important, so OGC, but again OpenStreetMap on the data, and all these things coming together. For me, that's what the whole philosophy of GeoForAll is. That creates that opportunity to access quality educational opportunities for all, which is very important for broadly shared prosperity for all. So I think that education and empowerment is what the GeoForAll, the philosophy and ideas, and all these colleagues contributing their expertise and ideas helps us achieve that. And I want to, so I hope I was able to summarize all the ideas in a very short way, what we are all doing. But I think for me, every single person and colleagues in all our network, they are all contributing to, in some way or form to, one or more of these SDG aims. And that's what I think that for me, gives me so much happiness, when every time I, get an opportunity to learn more from some of the work of colleagues are doing across the world. I think this is what I find so much inspiring. Even today, the work that was presented from colleagues in Milano, from the Nikos presenting the wider how teacher training programs are facilitated through the newsletters, and Victor and Uchechi talking about their work in Nigeria. All of them, they have been doing great contributions, and I want to thank each and every one of them for their contributions, which helps us achieve the wider aim of the SDG aims as well. And also I want to specifically thank Victoria and Helena, who are leading us, and their work and efforts to help us move forward, and Rafael for also hosting this webinar series, which is again a very powerful way of reaching out our ideas to a global community. And without Rafael and colleagues at the University of Denmark, we could not have made this possible. So my thanks to Rafael and colleagues as well for hosting this webinar as well. And I want to conclude by thanking everyone for their contribution to the World Commons Week as well, because this is the kind of opportunity that brought us all together this week. So I want to wish everyone a very productive week of celebrating the common scholarship and practice. So I want to end here now, and back to you, Victoria and Rafael.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Suchith. It was very interesting to see again just what everyone's up to, and hopefully inspiring to everyone else as well. Then just to quickly check again if there's someone from Women in GIS at Kenya, from Kenya. Okay, so if anyone has some questions for any of our speakers or just want to discuss a general topic, now is the chance. You can just raise your hand or start speaking up.
Well, thank you, Victoria. Mine is not just a question, but rather a comment and probably take home from this mini conference, especially from the last presentation by Suchith. I know last year we had same mini conference to celebrate the World Commons Week. And then our contribution to the SDGs. And following the presentation of Suchith, I think we could move further, probably by looking at specific projects that could be as a use case for each of the SDGs, so that subsequent year, next year, we could have all our GeoForAll labs coming up, at least for one of each of these SDGs. It will be quite interesting, so that we'll be able to have presentations and use cases of what people have done from the different geo labs across the countries, and especially in Africa. For us, our unique mappers, I think with our presentation last year, we had some of these SDGs we are focused, but we also came into the SDG 2, and all this while we've been also working and with GODAN to see how we can contribute to SDG 2, zero hunger. So we can drive all our GeoForAll labs to see how we can mentor and provide specific use cases for each of these SDGs, so that in subsequent year presentation for the SDGs contribution, will have more to showcase. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Victor. I think that's really good ideas, and I think we will follow up. In fact, when I look at it, even the work you have been doing, it's in different SDGs. As you mentioned, you're also working in zero hunger. So, what we can do, maybe Victoria, maybe later you can discuss with Helena as well. Maybe next year, which we will discuss with Charlie, and maybe because this time it was a bit later, but maybe at least 2 months before the World Commons Week. Hopefully Charlie will be doing that next year as well. We can plan ideas on, maybe look into our labs and see which of our labs are working in at least 5 of the key, because SDG, for example, the quality education, I can see all of our labs working, it's no question about it. But, specifically, I can see many of the labs, for example, I know, for example, the UNEP, the UN, the Warsaw colleagues, they do a lot of work in climate education and, all those circular economy and things like that, which is very relevant to, the SDG on climate action. So, maybe we can reach out to them directly, so we can look into our labs to see which of the labs are working in specific SDG aims more, in addition to the quality education, which, for example, maybe through their research or through their, the research projects, or maybe they have focus on one or more of these SDGs as well. So that is a really good way to have their work highlighted and then shared with the wider community. So, and that builds collaborations as well. For example, listening to Victor and Uchechi's presentation, maybe there will be other labs in our network who might be working in this similar area, who might think, okay, we should be collaborating with Victor and other colleagues' lab in Nigeria. So, and similarly in the climate action, the zero hunger. For example, in the zero hunger, I know there are at least 5-6 labs in our network who are working in various projects in this area. So, so each of these teams can be a really good way to highlight the work of our labs in the future as well. Thank you. Victoria, do you have any? Please go ahead with your ideas.
Yeah, so something I was thinking about that's also a possibility is recently when we had the GeoForAll AGM, I was actually thinking maybe early next year we can do a GeoForAll AGM where everyone just gives a quick 5-minute update on their lab activities, where we can also highlight like our work in SDGs and things like that. So then we also can identify people for the World Commons Week from that, and also for the newsletter who to target to write something and so on.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Victoria. I think maybe I think that having an AGM, and then before the AGM we can send information. You can send an information informing that the key aim of this AGM is to identify which of the SDGs, maybe a top 3 SDGs each of the lab is working. And then, after the AGM, we can collate all this information, which then will be really useful for Nikos, so he can highlight some of the work in the newsletter, as well as, for the next year's World Commons Week, as well as for, looking into research projects and trying to find who is working in the different areas. This helps us a great way to find key collaborators in different SDG aims.
Yes, definitely. With the COVID schedule that affected our university, we have a bit of time in January, February. So I'm hoping to be able to arrange something in that period.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Victor. I think that'll be really, great way to.
I think another way of handling it, Victoria and Suchith, is probably both of you could outline specific projects for each of these SDGs, and then probably provide a call for proposal from the different Geo labs. And then if there is fund, maybe provide a mini grant so that each of these Geo lab can focus on the one that is approved for them, and at the end of the day, they could have something to deliver. That's another way, beside maybe allowing them to work independently to provide use cases, focus to see how each of these Geo labs could be effective, and then also delivering the Geo education empowerment for all, with specific projects that can address each of these SDGs. Thank you.
That's great, great idea, Victor. In fact, I just remembered, I think it was Silvana, I think 3 or 4 years back, she produced the Silvana Camboin from Brazil. Silvana, she produced this very nice graphic of these different labs work. But one of the things I remembered is maybe we can think about a edited volume or like a special issue call or something like that. Once we, maybe after the GeoForAll AGM that Victoria is calling, once we know the who are the collaborators in different SDG topics, this might be a really good way to focus like a special issue kind of journal or maybe a book chapter, kind of book edition or something like that. For example, because many of our colleagues are working in academia, that might be a really good way for them to get an opportunity to publish their work as well. So maybe Victoria, it will be great if you or Helena can lead these activities as well once you know more details. I'm happy to help.
Okay, no, great. I made a note of these, so we'll try and see what we can do for next year. Is there any other questions for any of the presenters or comments? I don't see anything.
I'm sorry, this is Rafael. Just a quick request. Thank you to all the presenters. That was really amazing presentation, and thank you for your inspiring work. And to all the presenters, could you please send me your slides and attached to an email, because I would like to upload and also together with a video recording. And I have a quick question comment for everyone. What would be the best way to? It has come up in the conversation right now, but to communicate the importance and relevance of openness to the audience that is not familiar with it. Sometimes I find myself, communicating with the people that are aware of openness, that know the importance of openness, that are excited about openness, but I feel like I am not reaching to the folks that have not heard of it, or that even though they are into geospatial science and technology, they don't understand the interactions of the different components of openness. So several ideas have been thrown away, but I just want to ask you what other things could be doing to reach out those audience that are a little bit less informed of openness. What is it, and what is its importance?
That's a great question, Rafael. And I think, I don't know one answer, but one of the things, for me is also about inclusivity. For example, if you want this, for example, geospatial science to be inclusive to everyone, especially for the economically poor, openness is fundamental. So even today, that's why I was mentioning, whichever SDG aims we look into, unless we have that holistic approach of how can I say, holistic approach of looking at that's why the global collaborations and for global collaborations, openness is so fundamental, and inclusivity is also very important. So for me, if we start thinking about how we can uplift the most kind of the poorest or most economically poor to also benefit from the work that we are doing, that itself, then everybody benefits. So once we are focusing on on that aspect, so openness is about making sure the most disadvantaged or the most economically poor, they also have a place in the system. So for me, when it doesn't matter which field you are. If I am in, for example, right now I work in food security and global zero hunger aim. It can, or it can be in education, whichever field you are. I think the openness is to ensure that, for example, if it is in food security, it's about the smallholder farmer, who are the most disadvantaged in the system. They get a voice, so that's inclusivity. So when we are developing systems and governance to focus on the most poorest, then everything benefits. In fact, I think, I was very impressed. Was it Uchechi? Is Uchechi here? Because Uchechi had given a really good presentation on inclusive. Uchechi, are you there? So maybe
yes,
she can also add some perspective from Nigeria, from so developing country perspective as well, because I think that's also very important aspect of all this. Uchechi?
Based on what I presented, women are currently, like I said, women are currently lagging behind in almost all the indicators you can think of. Even though there has been significant progress in economic opportunities, I think based on what Suchith said, because we don't have enough data, the data that is even existing might be quite misleading. So I think it's very, very important that we work with young people to get them to collect better data. And that way, when we do that, because it's kind of citizen participation, we can obviously have that data open, we can have that data available to be freely used and shared with the different organizations interested in gender equality. So I think that that's a very key aspect to that, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chechi. And I think, you know, the developing country context is also very important because especially when geospatial science, even like 10 years back, many of the universities in the developing world didn't have courses in geospatial science. And the change in the last 10 years is amazing. You know, and obviously we have a long way to go. But what I always find is, you know, the work that the Open Source Geospatial Foundation colleagues has done, you know, is phenomenal, because without these free and open tools, you know, many of the work that, you know, colleagues right now, you know, from in the developing world are doing was not possible. You know, now they have the tools and the technologies and the data to make that possible. So, you know, so that's where I see the empowerment aspect as well. So, you know, how do we make sure openness is about the empowerment of the most economically poor students and faculty in the developing world as well, to make so they can also be part of the digital economy opportunities. Rafael, I don't know if it is the is it something else you are thinking about when you are looking at openness?
Yeah, thank you thank you for those comments. Yes, I completely agree with what has been said, and particularly I find very valuable and exciting the participation of women or underrepresented groups and nations. Also, I think it's important to highlight the importance of openness in the developed world, because some people think that openness and open source technologies are mostly for people that don't have money, and that's not necessarily the whole story. So that's something that it will be interesting also to put there.
Yes, I think that's very good.
Yes, Rafa, to add to that, I think what we need to drive is attitudinal change, because like you mentioned, so many in the geospatial industry heavily depend on the proprietary softwares to drive geo-education or even activities. And then we want to let them know that open source softwares is better than what they have. And I remember one of the Phos4G conference this year. I think someone made a submission for a presentation, and then but the presentation didn't go through because the paper was assessed on the basis that there is no indication for open source software that is used in that paper. And so you find out that the individual will need to get back. We need to get back to see the need to use open source software, because when we advocate for open source, openness, and open data, like you said, people feel that it's meant for those who don't have money, but that's not that. The restriction also is what should be emphasized. The restriction in the proprietary softwares, restrictions in the proprietary data, as against the free to use softwares and data and so on. So I think our strategy, our approach should be driving an attitudinal change, so that they will understand that it's not about the money, the cost, but rather about being open to share what you have, and then I share without any restriction. And I'm sure GeoForAll Labs could really drive this to the various local communities.
Thank you, Victor. That's really good. And in fact, Rafael, one of the things also is importance of open science aspect. So maybe that is also one element you can highlight when you are talking about openness. So science, the key aspects of when we even look at peer review of scientific publication. Again, transparency in peer review is again one part of openness of science. It helps look into credibility of science in the sense that for reproducibility of research results. So the whole open science, in fact, the report I mentioned on the European Commission's work on open science aspect, I think this is really relevant to the work that the GeoForAll community is doing on how open science is a key important aspect of the of our work as well. So maybe that might be one area that you can look into, or if you when I'm looking into why openness in science is important, maybe open science, the whole open science philosophy and the open science movement is also something that we can learn from. Rafael?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that, Suchith. Yes. Oh, Nikos is here.
My name. Hello.
Hello, Nikos. Thank you for joining us. So we had your presentation. So maybe, it would be good for you to, have share a couple of your words with us as well. You are unmuted, Nikos.
I'm trying, I think is your microphone, Nikos, because I'm trying there now.
Yeah, okay. Hello, everybody. I tried to be here as soon as possible because I had a class, and now I just end up with my class. So I'm glad to be with you. I suppose that you had my presentation.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about something, I'm all yours.
Thank you, Nikos. I think we listened to your presentation, and it was really good to hear your perspective on how you have been using the newsletter for the teacher training aspects. That was really inspiring, and and thanks to you and all the co-editors and all who have contributed every month to make that. I think that's the power of the voluntary effort. I'm always amazed at how people are doing for a global good. They come together and make it possible. So my gratitude to you and the whole team that make that possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to make, I'm sorry, I don't mean to talk so much, but I want to, I really like your perspective on how the value of and importance of using a newsletter as an important tool for education and communication. We don't think of a newsletter just as a casual social thing, but I think you make a very clear, good point, and thank you for your work, because it's awesome.
Thank you very much, Rafael.
Victoria, maybe I think now you can summarize the meeting, and then Rafael, maybe you can do the final words, and then unless anybody else has any questions.
It doesn't look that way. Yeah, so I think it was a very fruitful session. The presentations was quite interesting to get an idea of what everyone is doing. As we all working so virtually at the moment, it's very nice to see what everyone's doing and just get engaged with each other. I also think the discussion afterwards were quite fruitful, and it gives us some indication of where we can try and work towards next year. And if anyone feels like volunteering to try and help out with organizing a specific initiative, please let me know. And then I just want to say from my side as well, thank you very much to Suchith for organizing this, and as well as Raphael for all the technical aspects to this. We greatly do appreciate that.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Victoria. Raphael, any other comments or anything? So I also want to, before I hand to Raphael, I want to also thank everyone for joining today and all the speakers and for their presentations, and all our community members as well. So thanks everyone, and thanks to Raphael for making this possible, and Charlie for inviting us to have this session. So special thanks to Charlie and others who are working on the World Commons Week as well. So the huge work they have been doing. So many other presentations. I didn't have a chance to listen to all of them, but I hope later when the recordings are made available, I will listen to at least some of them as well. So big thank you to Charlie and also Raphael for making this possible. Raphael, over to you.
Yep. Again, if you could, to the presenters, if you could please send me your slides. And I just want to echo what Victoria and Suchith have said in terms of your participation and your work, which is truly inspiring. And I want to emphasize the tremendous value of each of you, your work, your leadership, and also Suchith's leadership has been fundamental to keep us up there all excited about open source and participating, and to Victoria for taking the role of being a leader. So all of you have done tremendous contributions, and I'm sure that I'm speaking for many people. We are very, very grateful. And with that, if that's okay with you, I will stop the recording